Hi, I'm Anna from Timeless Tales. One gown, one mask, one dance she'll never forget. Let's see what happens in Midnight Masquerade. The ward smelled of carbolic soap and boiled cabbage, the kind of scent that clung to me no matter how hard I scrubbed. My wrists ached from lifting patients, and I pressed them to my temples for a moment, as if I could rub the tiredness out. Across from me, Dorothy rolled bandages like she was spinning gold thread instead of linen. Her bobbed hair caught the lamplight, mischievous and perfectly waved. She was everything I was not: bright, daring, untouchable. "Meg," she said, eyes darting toward me, "if you don't do something outside these four walls, you'll dry up before your time." I gave a tired laugh and smoothed the front of my apron. "I've got work enough, and a book waiting by my bed." "That will do." Dorothy tossed the bandage onto the tray with a dramatic sigh. "Books. What you need is music, dancing, masks." She leaned closer, her voice dropping into a conspiratorial whisper. "The Bachelor and Spinster's Masquerade Ball. Town Hall. Next Saturday. Everyone will be there." "A masquerade?" I swallowed hard before I spoke, my throat too dry. "Dorothy, I've no gown, no mask, and no time. I can't just pretend to be one of you modern girls." Her grin widened. "You'll borrow mine. The pale blue silk you always admire, and a silver mask that will make your eyes shine." I shook my head, more to steady myself than to argue. "We'll see. But don't expect miracles." Even as I said it, I felt my chest tighten. Not with dread alone, but with something more dangerous: the faintest flutter of curiosity. By Thursday, I was standing barefoot on Dorothy's rug, arms lifted like a mannequin while she pinned her silk gown to fit me. I couldn't stop smoothing the skirt, though my hands only made it slip more. "It feels too fine," I murmured, blinking too much at the gaslight glare in the mirror. "I'll look ridiculous." "Ridiculous?" Dorothy stepped back, hands on her hips, lips painted daring red. "You'll look like a dream. Now hold still." She lifted the mask. It was silver, with tiny beads that winked in the light. She fastened it over my eyes. My breath caught. The woman in the mirror wasn't Nurse Margaret O'Donnell of Boston City Hospital. She wasn't the girl with aching feet, red chafed hands, and ink stains on her fingers. This woman had a mystery: sparkle. She looked like she could walk into the town hall ballroom and belong there. I touched the mask with trembling fingertips, afraid that if I blinked too long, the image would vanish. "It's only one night," I whispered. "Then it's back to the ward." But the way my cheeks glowed, I knew the mask had already betrayed me. Part of me wanted to believe I could be someone else, if only until the music stopped. The clanging of the streetcar faded as I stood at the base of Boston Town Hall, staring up at its stone steps. Warm light spilled through the high windows, carrying with it the faint thrum of jazz, a trumpet bright, a drum like a heartbeat. My palms were already damp inside my gloves. Dorothy linked her arm through mine and gave me a wicked smile. "Don't frown so much, Meg. You'll crease your mask before you even get inside." I adjusted it for the third time, though it hadn't slipped. My throat felt dry, and I swallowed, but the lump stayed. This was a mistake. I should have stayed home with my book. Dorothy tugged me forward. I stumbled on the hem of her borrowed dress, chin up, cheeks burning. Then the doors opened, and the world tilted. The hall was ablaze with chandeliers, lanterns swaying, couples sweeping across the parquet floor. The air smelled of champagne and perfume, so different from carbolic soap and boiled cabbage that it made me dizzy. I hovered at the edge, smoothing my skirt again and again, half hidden behind a column. The mask pressed against my cheeks, making me feel both disguised and exposed all at once. I could feel my pulse in my throat, fast as the music. Dorothy nudged me toward the floor. Just one dance, Meg. Then you can hide in a corner if you like. I cleared my throat, though I had nothing to say. My feet wanted to stay rooted, but before I could protest, a tall man in a black mask stepped out of the swirl of dancers. He bowed slightly, gloved hand extended. "May I?" His voice was warm, confident, cutting through the noise as if he'd been speaking only to me. I froze, caught like a moth in a lantern. My first thought wasn't yes or no. My hand was trembling, and I didn't know if I dared let him see it. I don't know what possessed me to place my hand in his. Perhaps the mask made me braver. Or maybe it was simply that his voice reached me over the clamor of trumpets and chatter, steady as a lifeline. His glove was warm around mine as he drew me onto the floor. My feet resisted at first, stumbling on the polished parquet, but his arm steadied me, guiding me into the rhythm of the band. The music was fast, a jazz tune with a cheeky trumpet that made Dorothy laugh somewhere across the room. But he slowed it down with his hold, pulling me into a space where the noise dulled and I could almost believe we were alone. "You dance well," he said. I blinked, nearly stepping on his shoe. "That is a lie. I haven't danced in years." He tilted his head, the edge of his black mask catching the chandelier light. "Then you must have been hiding your talent." I felt my cheeks flush. "If you call tripping over Hem's talent, then yes, I'm extraordinary." He laughed, the sound low and unhurried, and for some reason, it made my chest tighten. I looked away quickly. My pulse matched the drummer's beat. "Are you always this hard on yourself?" he asked. I swallowed before answering. "I prefer to be realistic." "Realistic," he echoed, leaning closer. "Or afraid?" The question startled me so much that I missed a step. My heel scraped the floor, and I gripped his shoulder to steady myself. The contact sent a shiver up my arm, and I pulled away as though burned. His smile deepened, though he said nothing, only guided me back into the rhythm until my steps smoothed again. When the music ended, I stood frozen for a moment, uncertain if I should thank him, apologize, or flee. He released me with a bow, the faintest glint of amusement in his eyes. I found my voice at last. "You don't even know my name." "Perhaps not," he said, straightening, "but I intend to." I let him lead me from the floor when the song ended, though my legs still felt shaky, as though I'd been running rather than dancing. The crowd swallowed us, voices rising in laughter, masks bobbing in sequins. He guided me toward a quieter corner beneath the balcony where the lantern light was softer. My mask had slipped slightly, and I fumbled to straighten it, buying time while my breath settled. "You see?" he said, leaning one shoulder against the column. "You survived." I folded my arms across my middle. Barely. I must look a fool. Not at all. His gaze lingered, steady in a way that made my stomach knot. "You looked alive." Alive. The word startled me, though I tried not to show it. I lifted my chin and cleared my throat, the sound too loud in the hush of the corner. "You say that as if I usually look half dead." He chuckled softly, and I had the absurd thought that if he smiled much longer, I'd forget how to breathe. Before I could reply, Dorothy appeared, cheeks flushed and eyes sparkling. She carried 2 glasses of champagne, thrusting one into my hand. "There you are, Meg," she exclaimed, her voice carrying over the music. "Dancing already, and with the most eligible man in the room, no less." My face burned beneath the mask. "Dorothy," but she was already turning to him, appraising. "Tell me, do you know she's a nurse? Always working, never playing. I had to drag her here by the hair." "Dorothy!" I hissed, clutching the stem of the glass too tightly. The man tilted his head, studying me with new interest. A nurse, he repeated, the words slow, almost thoughtful. That explains a great deal. I couldn't meet his eyes. The music swelled again, and I took a sip of champagne too quickly, bubbles fizzing sharply in my throat. Dorothy winked, clearly satisfied with herself. Don't let her slip away, mister. She'll claim she's too busy, but she isn't. With that, she vanished back into the crowd, leaving me glaring at the space she'd filled. He didn't laugh at my mortification. Instead, he straightened, his expression unreadable behind the mask. So, a nurse. I swallowed, the words sticking in my throat. Yes, and what of it? His eyes glimmered. Only that it makes you far more interesting than you think. The music and chatter pressed close again, but I hardly heard it. I was too aware of the way he said the word interesting, as though it were a secret. The night blurred into more music, more laughter. Dorothy disappeared into the crush of dancers again, leaving me with my mysterious partner. We lingered near the edge of the floor, speaking in low bursts between songs, though I found myself adjusting my mask every few minutes as if it could shield me from how close he stood. He asked me about Boston, where I walked on my half-days, what books I read, and whether I preferred the Charles in summer or autumn. His questions came easily, but I answered them cautiously, always smoothing my skirt before I spoke, as though words might wrinkle if I wasn't careful. Then I heard it. Someone passing behind us greeted him. Dr. Whitmore. There you are. Haven't seen you since the hospital committee dinner. The name struck like cold water poured down my back. Dr. Whitmore. I stiffened, my glass trembling in my hand. My ears filled with the rush of the trumpet, too loud, too bright. I turned sharply, studying him. The confident posture, the way his mask hid the sharpness of his eyes. No, I whispered before I could stop myself. He looked back at me, brows lifting under the black mask. What is it? My voice faltered. I swallowed hard, throat dry. You're the new surgeon. The one the hospital board's been whispering about. The man they say is impossible to work with. His expression shifted, something unreadable flickering there. For the first time that evening, he hesitated. I see my reputation has arrived before I have, he said quietly. Heat rushed to my cheeks, mortification swelling until I wanted to vanish into the parquet. I gripped the edge of the table beside us, knuckles white, desperate to steady myself. Of all the men in Boston, of all the partners Dorothy might have shoved me toward, it had to be him, my soon-to-be superior, the man I'd already decided to dislike. I shouldn't be here, I said quickly, setting down my half-empty glass. My voice shook. This was a mistake. Just then, the ballroom clock chimed midnight, each note ringing over the swell of the band. A cheer went up as couples began tugging at their masks, laughter bubbling like champagne. My hands froze at the ribbons behind my head. I thought if I held the mask long enough, I could keep pretending, keep him at arm's length. But Arthur was already watching me, waiting, his own mask dangling from one hand. I drew in a breath and pulled mine free. The air felt colder on my cheeks, as though the mask had been shielding me. His eyes met mine, steady, unflinching. For the first time all night, there was no teasing, no performance, just recognition. You are exactly as I imagined, he said softly. I nearly laughed, though it came out more like a sigh. Then you imagined me plain and nervous. He shook his head once, deliberately. I imagined you real. The words unsettled me more than any of his earlier banter. Real. I pressed the mask against my skirt, smoothing the silk as though it could steady my thoughts. Confetti rained, couples kissed, Dorothy whooped. I stood still, caught in his gaze. I had come expecting ridicule, awkwardness, perhaps a single dance I could laugh about later. Instead, I found myself aching with something I didn't dare name. We slipped out into the night not long after, masks tucked away like relics. The streets around Boston Common were quiet, save for a late streetcar and a few couples heading home. My feet ached in borrowed shoes, but I hardly noticed. Arthur walked beside me, coat collar turned up against the chill. Neither of us spoke. It wasn't uncomfortable, only strange, as though words might break whatever had formed between us inside those glittering walls. Then he stopped. A vendor stood on the corner, steam curling from his cart, the smell of roasted chestnuts and sausages drifting through the cold. Arthur handed the man a few coins and returned with 2 paper-wrapped hot dogs. "Hardly champagne," he said, offering me one, "but it will keep you alive." I laughed before I could stop myself, the sound bright in the empty street. I took the hot dog, its warmth seeping into my gloves, and for the first time all night, I felt steady. We sat on a bench by the common, our masks discarded between us. I bit into the hot dog, nearly burning my tongue, and he grinned at my muffled protest. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real, and I liked it more. He turned slightly, his voice quiet. "You'll let me see you again?" I hesitated, fingers brushing the edge of the mask on the bench, then looked up. "Yes," I said, surprising even myself. "I think I will." The lamps glowed against the mist, the city hushed around us, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like Nurse Margaret, sensible and tired. I felt alive.